Hey and welcome back. So in my last video, while we mostly focused on a specific type of recruiting, contingent, I also mentioned the other major type, retainer. The difference between these two types of recruiting isn't so much in their processes and strategies, although there are definitely some, but rather in how and when they are paid. Third-party recruiting agencies that practice contingency recruiting are only paid after one of their candidates has been hired. This means that the client company doesn't risk spending money on a fruitless search. Conversely, retainer recruiters are paid an upfront fee before they begin work, and some actually receive a payment after a successful placement as well. So, in this video, we're going to explore retainer recruiting in much more detail. But before we get started, as always, remember to like, subscribe, click that bell, really means a lot. How and when a recruiter gets paid may seem like a strange distinction to make, especially if their processes are largely the same. But there are some pretty major pros and cons of each type of recruiting, both on the side of hiring clients, the recruiters themselves, even the prospective candidates. But before we delve into the pros and cons of retainer recruiting and compare it to the contingency recruiting, let's first make sure we have a solid idea of what retainer recruiting actually is. Retainer recruiting explained. It should hopefully be clear by now that retainer recruiting simply means the recruiter is paid an upfront fee, maybe even a monthly, ongoing fee, prior to beginning their search. As you can probably imagine, this is far riskier for the company compared to contingency recruiting. So retainer recruiting is typically reserved for high-level positions like managers, directors, and even executives. It also means that the recruiter is likely highly experienced with a strong, proven track record of successful hires. So the company is taking less of a risk than if they were to hire a newcomer instead. Additionally, retained recruiters usually have specialized knowledge in an area that's important to their client. For instance, they may be knowledgeable about the company's culture or have a deeper understanding of the technical aspects of the job. These types of recruiters will also have a specific source to locate specialized candidates, so they may be able to quickly offer experienced options right out of the gate. Keeping all of this, as well as the name retainer in mind, it should come as no surprise that these recruiters usually enter into long-term relationships with their client. The move to retained recruiter from contingency recruiter signals a big step forward for those in working their way up in the industry, as it is a sign of experience and indeed greater, consistent income. The pros of a retainer. On the side of the recruiter, the benefits of retainer should be obvious. Getting paid upfront and typically when a placement is made means more money. More money in turn means you can spend more time and effort on a single client, and as such, retained recruiters often are more involved in the entire hiring process, assisting with sourcing clients, posting on job boards, interviewing, and even sometimes making the final decision. All of these are a huge help to the client company, which is why they are willing to risk a greater upfront payment. The results are undeniable. Retained recruiters also bring the same tools to the table that a contingency recruiter would, such as software solutions and their own recruiting expertise and specialization. But they also play a much bigger role. The final major benefit of being a retained recruiter is lack of competition. Contingency recruiters are often pit against other agencies and even the internal hiring team, meaning they could put in work into finding candidates and end up don't getting hired. A retained recruiter doesn't deal with this risk. On the side of the hiring client company, using a retained recruiter means quick, high-quality results for hard-to-fill or senior positions. When a company develops a relationship with a recruiter that works well for them, they won't have to worry about vacancies and key positions, as they will have access to a pipeline of qualified talent and the help that they need to move them through the hiring process effectively. The cons of a retainer. The cons of retained recruitment in many ways mirror the pros. Companies see it as risky to pay more money up front with no guarantee that there will be actual results. There's also the chance that a sourced employee will be a bad fit for the company. Since retained recruiters typically don't have a warranty or a money-back guarantee should this occur, they may end up back at square one. It can be hard for companies to measure the value of recruiters' actions. They like it when values can be quantified. So recruiters that work retainers sometimes have to deal with controlling clients who won't let them do their jobs. Retained versus contingency recruiters. The other type of recruiting, contingency, is the opposite of retainer. As the name suggests, their payment is contingent on a candidate they've sourced actually getting successfully hired. The nature of each type of recruitment determines their methodology. A retained recruiter will take the time finding a handful of candidates that specifically match the specialized talents the role requires. A contingency recruiter will typically likely deliver a larger pool of more generalized but also targeted candidates. As such, contingency recruiters are used to fill less specialized or even temporary roles. However, in other industries like tech, contingency recruiters are often used for also highly specialized roles. That doesn't mean contingency is less valuable. On the contrary, it is especially effective if there are many lower level roles that needs to be filled quickly. That said, it's a goal for many recruiters to move to retained recruiting, which is easier said than done. We'll explore this in greater detail in a future video, but let's briefly look at how you might go about convincing an organization to move to a retainer model. Credibility. Credibility is sometimes more than just having an impressive resume. although that's certainly important. The key to establishing credibility is understanding your value. Some clients won't be willing to pay more, and that's okay. Focus on clients that are willing to consider it, and prove to them that you're worth the extra investment by providing them your expertise when they need it the most. However, make it clear that as a retained recruiter, you will have much more time and effort to dedicate to comprehensive hiring strategies, and you can only offer so much under contingency. Emphasize the importance of success. You want to help your client understand that a retained recruiter is especially important for specialized, hard-to-fill, and senior positions because there are risks and costs associated with an unsuccessful hire. If the candidate is hired but ends up failing, they'll have to start the process all over again. Once the client sees the importance of success, they'll be more willing to consider spending the extra money on an effective retained recruiter. Some other things to keep in mind. Remember that the ultimate goal of any client company is to fill a position. Consider doing contingency work first, maybe to demonstrate your value before selling them on a retainer. And don't forget to also emphasize that a retained recruiter will guarantee higher quality results for hard-to-fill positions. I hope you found this video on retained recruiter helpful. If you're more curious to learn about contingency recruiting, make sure you check out my previous video. We'll have more for you about these topics and more in the future coming soon. Have any more thoughts on retained recruiter? Please make sure to drop down a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please feel free to comment, subscribe, and like that bell. It really means a lot and completely free. Please feel free to follow me at Preston_Park, as I try my best to also post daily. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.